Television as a medium has always been used to showcase different aspects of life in America, from stay-at-home moms to workaholic dads, from children in schools to rebellious teenagers. Television is able to caption every side of America's mainstream culture, but only the parts of culture that are heterosexual, that is.
What Jimmy didn't know was that Ralph was sick, a sickness that was not visible like smallpox, but no less dangerous and contagious, a sickness of the mind. You see, Ralph was a homosexual, a person who demands an intimate relationship with members of their own sex.
Since the very beginning, the LGBT community has been pushed into the shadows of American society. Seen as a taboo and against America's Christian values, the LGBT community is treated like a boogeyman. Society pretends like they do not exist. They are not given any meaningful representation on television, but when they are shown, they are portrayed as walking stereotypes, or even pedophiles who are out to corrupt America's youth.
One never knows when the homosexual is about. He may appear normal, and it may be too late when you discover he is mentally ill.
It wouldn't be until the 60s and 70s that the LGBT community would emerge from the shadows of American society. Taking a stance during the social movement boom of the 60s, the LGBT community no longer wanted to be seen as outcasts of society. They wanted to be seen for who they truly are, not walking stereotypes, but human beings with hearts and aspirations, people who just want to be with the ones that they love, and to be shown the dignity and respect they deserve. From the first gay rights demonstrations in Washington, D.C., to the infamous Stonewall Inn riots in New York, the LGBT community showed that they were determined to finally gain a space for themselves in society, and American television began to take notice.
One of those, Frank? Which one of thoses do you mean, Frank?
One of those types that don't like girls. Get it?
Oh, one of those.
With the LGBT community being brought to the forefront of America's attention, with their fight for respect and equality, television shows finally started to add LGBT elements into their programming. Despite this, the representation was rather weak, and oftentimes didn't do the LGBT community justice. Television shows that include LGBT characters would only have those characters in for only one episode. These LGBT characters didn't do much for the episodes other than to cause conflict for the heterosexual main characters.
Condemning somebody for something that's his own business. Look me in the eye, Trapper John McHypocrite, and tell me there isn't something in your past you wouldn't like to keep buried.
A common trope was that the LGBT person's presence would cause panic and confusion in the heterosexual cast. The plot usually went with some characters being uncomfortable and hateful towards this character, while other characters would try to defend them.
Do you approve of homosexuals?
Arthur, it doesn't matter whether I approve or I disapprove. They are human beings. They exist.
These episodes, though painting the LGBT community in a slightly better light than before, still portrayed the community as a source of discomfort that was more or less supposed to be seen as merely tolerated by society.
You should know about those guys. They're not gay.
You said they were.
I said there were two gay men in the bar. I didn't say who they were. Yeah, the guys I was talking about are still here. Right, guys?
Right.
The 1980s showed slightly better representation for LGBT characters. There were still no LGBT main characters in television. When LGBT characters were shown, there was still the same trope of their presence causing concern for the other characters. The difference with these episodes was that the LGBT characters were given depth, and made to be sympathized with instead of laughed at.
What did you mean when you told me that you could accept my being gay? Did you mean it was okay so long as I was celibate? It was okay so long as I don't fall in love? Doug is a part of the family now, my family. And if you don't like it, then you don't have to be a part of my family.
The hetero characters were supposed to feel ashamed that they felt such alarm for these characters. There was a better emphasis of showing LGBT characters not as stereotypes, but rather as human beings who are just trying to live their lives the way they want to.
I can accept the fact that he's gay, but why does he have to slip a ring on this guy's finger so the whole world will know?
Why did you marry George?
We loved each other. We wanted to make a lifetime commitment, wanted everybody to know.
That's what Doug and Clayton want, too. Everyone wants someone to grow old with, and shouldn't everyone have that chance?
Huge improvements weren't seen until the 1990s. It all started when Ella DeGeneres came out not only on her sitcom, but in real life as well.
Susan, I'm gay.
Her sitcom character was one of the first openly gay main characters in American television history. Though Ellen coming out had negative consequences at first, with her sitcom being canceled, her coming out is what got the ball rolling for meaningful LGBT representation on television. Shortly after Ellen came out, the show Will and Grace began to air on television. The show was revolutionary because it had multiple main characters who were members of the LGBT community. This was a very big step in LGBT representation. This wasn't just one off character who would show up for one episode and then never be seen again. These characters were the main focus of the show. Being gay wasn't their only character trait either. They were fully fleshed out characters with their own lives and personalities. Will and Grace was revolutionary for the LGBT community.
And I just want to know how long I'm going to have to wait until I can see two gay men kiss on network television.
Not as long as you'd think.
From there, LGBT representation began to improve drastically. More and more LGBT characters were beginning to show up as main or recurring characters in a number of different shows. These characters weren't just walking stereotypes, who were only around for comic relief. They were characters with depth and personality, with their sexuality not being their defining trait.
If you would have told me 10 years ago that I would be living with someone and raising a beautiful baby girl, I would have said you were crazy. But here we are, and you and Lily are the best things that have ever happened to me. So if you're telling me there's another kid, how can that be anything but good?
Representation improved even more with the introduction of streaming services. These streaming services were able to start creating their own shows, in which they were able to include more recurring LGBT characters in shows than what was seen on TV previously. Not only that, but services like Netflix began to include an LGBT section on their site for content that pertained mainly about the LGBT community. A drastic improvement was also seen in representation in cartoons aimed at children. Shows like Adventure Time were able to include LGBT characters and relationships that were presented in a meaningful way. Steven Universe showcased a number of different LGBT relationships, as well as showing one of the first gay weddings in cartoon history.
And by the power vested in me by the state of Delmarva, I now pronounce you Garnet!
This representation is a great way for not only adults to become more familiar with the LGBT community, but for younger audience to become familiar with the community as well. The LGBT community has come a long way in their fight for representation and acceptance in society. Despite the vast improvements, there is still a long way to go before there is true equality in television media. There are still vastly more hetero characters in shows than LGBT characters, and some shows are still very wary of adding LGBT characters to their cast. Nevertheless, the advancements made in representation are still giant steps in the right direction. The representation has greatly helped the LGBT community in their goal, which was to be seen and accepted by a society that had kept them hidden for so long. The more people see LGBT characters being represented on television, the more likely they are to understand the movement and to become more knowledgeable and accepting. Representation in the media has been incredibly helpful for the LGBT community, and puts the movement one step forward to achieving true representation and equality in mainstream American society.